This is your chance, my audience, chance to get to know and hear from some American Muslim women in our community. Our final part of this three-part series will be a session featuring an interfaith panel of female faith leaders speaking about women's rights through the Abrahamic faith traditions. Now let's turn to our panel today. I will introduce each woman briefly, and we'll have more info on each of them in the video description. Let's start by welcoming back Aneelah Afzali, the Harvard Law School graduate who left her law career to serve and is now Executive Director of MAPS, AMIN, American Muslim Empowerment Network. Aneelah will also serve as co-moderator of our panel with me. Our panelists include Yasmin Ali, is the founder and CEO of Skillspire, a Bellevue-based startup launched in 2016. She has a master's degree in computer science and worked for Boeing and other tech companies. She is also a generous community builder who helped create the Muslim Association of Puget Sound, the largest Islamic center in Washington. Alaa Alshaibani is a campaign director for a state representative candidate, a 2017 college graduate. Alaa will also start her Masters of Public Administration program at Evans School of Public Policy and Governance in fall of 2018. She's a writer, iced coffee enthusiast, yes, intersectional feminist, and proud American Muslim woman. Amirah Ziada Mirziteh is a union organizer with UFCW 21 and a community activist. After obtaining a degree in international relations and social justice, Amirah co-founded a grassroots organization, was project lead at the Rachel Corrie Foundation for Peace and Justice, and has worked on multiple political campaigns. Jamila Ibrahim is a retired special education teacher, Lake County Sheriff Officer, and a longtime civil rights activist. A native of Mississippi and Illinois, Jamila handled case management for King County and Lake County, and has been active in women's rights and social work. Currently, she continues to volunteering with Muslim and non-Muslim organizations, including the Muslim Community Resource Center and YWCA. Janice Tufte is a native Seattleite who embraced Islam in early 2001. Since then, she has been active in creating educational resources and working on ending homelessness in King County and nationally. Janice serves and counsels with Seattle University, Washington Healthcare Authority, and King County, runs her own consulting company, and works nationally on health systems improvement research. An impressive panel of women. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Zahid, for having us here. Thank you to Veterans for Peace. I'm excited to be back here at TCTV, Thurston Community Media, and to have this amazing panel here with us. Looking forward to this conversation that we're going to have. So let's just start off and ask, how many of you, by a showing of hands, were born to Muslim parents? Okay. So for those of you who were born to Muslim parents, did you at some point personally choose Islam for yourself? Maybe we can start with Yasmin.
I did, and I think the main change that occurred was after my marriage. My husband came from a very active, practicing family, and he definitely rubbed off on me for 25 plus years now. So he is definitely a community activist, and he kind of brings us together in pretty much all the community activities. And that has played a huge role for where I am right now.
Yeah, I would have to say it's when I started college. So I lived on campus for my first year of undergrad, and I was one of maybe 2 Muslims on campus, and I rarely saw the other one. So I felt like I was the only one. And instead of having that be something that made me want to kind of veer away from my faith, especially because I was at a Christian affiliated school, but rather it brought me closer to my faith because I felt like it was something that I was proud to be a part of, and it's how I was raised, and I loved answering people's questions when they had them, so that's how I kind of found myself more in Islam.
Amirah?
I think for me, there was a point when I kind of rebelled against it. and just thought, you know, especially growing up in Eastern Washington, there's not a huge Muslim community, and so I actually ventured out and I joined a Baptist youth group once, and went to some Catholic services, and I tried a lot of different things, even some New Age religions. But I think that what really brought me back to Islam was that I felt like it to me it made the most sense, and it just had a lot of good teachings, and I just felt like, yeah, you know what, Islam's the right one.
How would you describe your own spiritual or faith background with Islam, whether born Muslim or not?
Spiritual background? Well, for me, I did grow up in Islam, and my parents were very, very supportive. So I did have an advantage, a real advantage because of that. And spiritually for me, because of their support and because of my seeking out, it was empowering to me. It was empowering. And not only did I spiritually grow in it, I'm still spiritually growing in it. Even though it's been 69 years, I'm still spiritually growing. You know.
I was raised a Christian, and as a young child at 12 years old, I remember my mom coming up in my bedroom and was praying before bed, and I had come to this conclusion that Jesus was a prophet, and my mother didn't discount what I said. She just took it with stride, and I explained to her how I saw Jesus as I saw the other prophets in the Old Testament. And I did not know until, say, 1999, or maybe 98, that Jesus was considered a prophet in Islam. And that was one of the driving factors for me. I really felt that this probably was my faith from my birth, and that it was something I wanted to learn more about, and studied it and embraced Islam.
And you embraced Islam in 2001?
Yeah, but I studied it for a year and embraced it in 2001, correct.
Okay, so how many of you were born in the US? Can we see a showing of hands? Okay. Let me ask Amirah, you have an interesting story. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and where you were born?
Yeah, so I was actually born in Caracas, Venezuela. At the time, my parents had already immigrated. They're both immigrants, had become naturalized citizens of the United States. My mom is Venezuelan, my dad's Egyptian, and at the time that my mom was pregnant with me in her late pregnancy, my parents were living in Saudi Arabia, getting ready to move back to the United States. And so during that move, because it was so late in her pregnancy, she decided to go back to Venezuela to be with her family, and then I was born. So I was born a Venezuelan citizen and a US citizen born abroad. And then because my dad's Egyptian, I'm also have Egyptian citizenship.
Wow.
How many of you are US citizens?
Yes, I'm a citizen.
Over 80% of United States American Muslims are. How many of you are registered voters? Great!
So let's talk about a topic that a lot of people think about when they think about Muslim women, the hijab or head covering. We know that in our country, about half of American Muslim women choose to wear the hijab or the head covering. Can you each talk about sort of why you chose to start wearing the hijab and maybe when? Maybe we can start this way with Janice.
When I embraced Islam, actually, I learned 4 surahs, which are chapters of the Quran, before I embraced it. And somebody from the local mosque, when I was planning on going, invited me there, and I said, I don't know what to wear. And she said, don't worry about it. And so she gave me an abaya and a scarf, and I started wearing it actually immediately afterwards, and had a lot of comments from a lot of people that weren't quite sure why, and I really feel comfortable with it. And it's very funny, if I've only walked outside the house a couple times without it, and you really feel like I'm naked, so it's hard to explain, but I'm proud of it, and I use it as an opportunity to show or to discuss with others what Islam is about. So it's about wearing my faith.
Okay. Jaminah, do you want to?
Yeah, I was just thinking back, because I wore hijab in high school and in college too, but I continued on to wear it, and it's amazing how that it's a part of me. And even now, I may not have to wear it, but I do. I love wearing hijab, and I love the fact that for me, it's a sense of modesty, as well as it starts conversations for me. And I'm able to, people ask me all the time, particularly where I live at, they said, oh, why you wear hijab? Tell me about Islam. So I get to tell about Islam, and I get to tell about why I do wear it, and why it is my choice. Alhamdulillah.
So Amirah, I'm the only one of my my sisters who chooses to wear hijab. You clearly don't. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I was always taught that in Islam you need to dress modestly, and that I think means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And for me, you know, in my immediate family, none of the women wear hijab. And my family in Egypt, you know, you would see one sister's wearing hijab and the other one's not. And so I always saw it as a choice, and I've chosen not to.
Alaa?
Yeah, so mine's an interesting story. So when I was in 2nd grade, my mom tried to get me to wear it, and then I would get on the bus and take it off. And then in 5th grade, she tried again, and this time it stuck. And I think the main thing that was holding me back was I was afraid of what, like any 10-year-old was worried about, is what their peers would think. But that second day of me wearing it, I actually left the house without having it on, and I just started bawling on my way to school because I didn't have it on. So it was just an immediate connection for me. And then as I grew older and learned about the true meaning behind it, and about modesty, and about how bringing it back to why I was afraid to wear it because of what society would think, and actually in wearing it, it's kind of like cutting that bridge between myself and society, and saying that I'm not going to follow societal standards, and that I'm worth more than what society decides to ascribe for me. So, yeah.
Yasmin?
So when I was growing up, I did not wear a hijab. And, you know, I was, when I was, I think, about 20 years ago, I used to attend a class, and the teacher used to talk about how it is very important to wear a hijab, to the extent that she was kind of pushing it. And I sort of rebelled, and I said, you know what, you don't push this stuff on a person. It has to be one's own choice. And after a while, you know, I started work. You know, I was always afraid, it's like, if I wear a hijab, are they going to give me a job? Are they going to look at me differently? That was definitely on my mind. But, you know, one Friday, I think I heard something that really clicked. And I figured, okay, this is it. I'm going to go wear it. And the very next day when I walked into Boeing, everyone looked at me. It's like, wow, way to go. You know, you did it. So, and then I never looked back. And I feel that it has definitely empowered me in a lot of respects. People look at me for the education that I have and what I have to deliver, not really at, you know, just the outward appearance.
I will say for me, I actually see it as a superwoman cape. It's a constant reminder of sort of God and the values that I am taught as a Muslim. Things like repelling evil with good, or making sure I show kindness and forgiveness even to the people who may not reciprocate or may not show that kind of behavior to me. And I, like I think Amirah or others recognized, I started wearing it not because I thought it was a religious mandate. Because like you, Amirah, I saw it as modesty as the mandate. But the more I learned about Islam, the more pride I had in being a Muslim. So I wanted to show that visibly manifest that pride in being a Muslim and being able to have the conversations that it sort of does create or spark.
What in Islam or Islamic teachings do you find it inspiring, empowering, or liberating, especially as a female?
Actually, there was one verse in the Quran that really brought me to Islam. It was Luqman 31 or 27, whatever, 31:27, and it's about if all the trees were pens and the ocean were ink, that the miracles of God or Allah would never be exhausted. And I grew up in Edmonds, and it was near the water, and my father was a colonel to be a general and passed away when I was 9, and he was in a hospital bed my whole childhood. And he had brain surgery when I was 3, and we didn't know he could talk or walk, and my father walked and couldn't talk, and it was a real miracle to me, and so I really have always felt there's something more, and so that specific ayat really still resonates with me, and it's very special. Thank you.
Sister Jaminah?
Oh, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. La ilaha illallah Muhammadan Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That was the very first thing that drove me to the spirituality where I'm at today. Just knowing that God is God and God has no partners. That for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which we get greetings to also. But that was for me a balance, a spiritual balance. And even today, I mean, we say it all the time, 5 times a day in a prayer. We say it and just in general when we're zikring also. But it's something for me. I remember the first time that I was taught that by the Sheikh, it just stayed with me, stuck with me, and then I just began to go through the empowerment of having it there and the self-esteem for having it there, not just as something you do, but also something that is spiritually bound. That was for me.
Thank you. Sister Amirah, would you like to share what liberates you?
Sure. I mean, I think that part of what I love about Islam a lot is that it just teaches peace and like kindness. And as someone that you know, has basically spent my adult life and career working for social justice and human rights, I feel like that is something that I really valued in Islam. And I also feel like in the cultural perspective, I have all my dad's family still lives in Egypt. And seeing that, you know, my aunt was the minister of education for all of Egypt for many years. Women there, a lot of my family there are doctors and architects. There's no such thing as like women having to fight for the right to vote in Egypt. As soon as voting started, women could vote. Women could have a job whenever they wanted. If they got a job, they got paid the same as a man that had the same job. So like really seeing like those values in practice in a country. And then seeing, you know, my experience here in the United States, and we're still fighting for a lot of that stuff. I think that was really empowering and kind of what brought me back to Islam when I tried to rebel.
Allah?
So there's 2 things. There is a ayah in one of the surahs.
Ayah is verse.
Ayah is verse, yes, thank you. In surah, which is like a chapter, dedicated to women. And it speaks about justice, and it speaks about how you should always stand up for justice, even if you're going against your own family, against your own friends. So that's something, especially now, as I'm starting to get more into activism, is something that I always go to. And then the other one is actually a hadith, which is kind of like a story of the Prophet. And it's about him and, I can't remember if it's his cousin or some other male companion, and they were traveling, and then this beautiful woman came up to them, and the Prophet was listening to her respectfully, but the guy next to him was just ogling at her. And so the Prophet didn't say anything to the woman, but he turns to the male and turns his gaze down. And that to me just shows that it's not about shaming women, but it's rather about liberating women and uplifting the status of women, that you need to be respectful. And that's what liberates me.
Sister Yasmin?
So you know, we have the 5 pillars in Islam, you know, the main things, which is the prayer, the fasting, and zakah, and all that stuff. Those definitely are the main foundation. But then over and above, I think Islam that, you know, that really, really resonates with me is how we give back to the community, how we help each other, how do we uplift the community. And that is one of the main driving force behind how I started my company. You know, the company that I started was to uplift the underrepresented communities. If you look at the tech industry right now, it's very white and very male. So I wanted to bring in the people of color and a lot more women. So, and even when I talk to my friends, I tell them that yes, you can sit and read Quran all the time, you know, and do prayer and do your meditation and whatever that you do, but until you go out and help someone in need, I don't think you'll really feel the sweetness of Islam.
Thank you.
That is beautiful, and I will say that last week when I spoke on the empowerment of women through Islam, a lot of the same themes that you guys mentioned today, including justice, including this idea of women playing roles in positions of power. You know, this traces back all the way 1400 years ago to the time of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, where he appointed women to positions of power, right? Just like what you're talking about, Amirah, happening today. And certainly even today we do have women, Muslim women who are even heads of state in Muslim majority countries, which I think is really unique and special too. And we also see something on the panel which is a reflection of the diversity of the American Muslim community, because in Islam we don't have a majority race, and I think we have a unique representation, a representative sample even here right now.
That's true.
In terms of families, how many of you have children?
I have 2 kids, a 16-year-old son who's in high school and an 11-year-old daughter.
No kids working on it.
Oh yes, like I mentioned earlier, I do have 4 children. Well, I had 4 children, 1 passed, so I have 3 children. And I also have grandchildren, as well as 1 great-grandchild, and 1 on the way, inshallah.
No,
No?
I don't have children, but I have a lot of projects I consider my children.
What's your favorite food?
My favorite food used to be Kung Pao chicken, but I'm vegetarian, so it has to be Kung Pao fake chicken or pho chicken.
Tofu.
Mine is collard greens, mustard greens, turnip greens mixed with cornbread, and sweet potato pie and bean pie. Inshallah.
I have a huge sweet tooth, but I keep getting told that like candy's not a food. So for food, probably I really like grilled lamb. I love grilled lamb.
Oh, that's good, yeah.
Yeah. Food, it would have to be either pizza or chicken shawarma.
Well, I'm Indian, so I definitely love Indian food, but other than Indian, I love sushi.
How many of you cook?
I do.
I follow recipes.
I cook. I also cook for other people. So alhamdulillah, that's a blessing for me to be able to do that. Yeah, and I'm interested in catering.
Right. Janice?
For myself and sometimes for others when they want to eat it. I'm vegetarian, so anyway, I'm not very creative. It's more functional.
Amirah?
No, my husband's the cook, so I let him cook. I can make sandwiches, cereal, toast, pasta.
So fun question for you. Name one of your hobbies. Let's start with Yasmin. What's
Yeah.
something you enjoy doing?
My downtime, I do yoga. That's where I regroup. That's my time that I try to do at least twice or thrice a week.
Regular or hot yoga?
No, regular.
Regular, okay.
Regular traditional yoga.
Alaa.
Mine should be yoga, but instead it's vegging out and just binge watching anything that seems interesting on Netflix or rewatching something. Currently rewatching Friends. So.
Friends?
Yep.
That, and I also really like playing video games. Xbox, lots of like Fallout, Skyrim. I like story-driven games too, like the Telltale series, and Life is Strange is one of my favorite games.
Ah, wow, hobbies. I love sewing, crocheting, things like that. My main thing right now is Tai Chi, even though it was from a stroke survival class that I took it, and now I'm continuing with it on a consistent basis. Tai Chi is good.
So I I've developed projects out of my hobbies, and it was actually thanks back to the Islamic community when I had eye surgery many years ago, and I wasn't sure if I was going to have my eyesight. So I've developed, I don't know, and started maybe 8 projects, and I still run quite a few. The Muslim Resource Guides and the Warm for Winter project with 48,000 handmade hats and scarves have been given out over the last 12 years at Thanksgiving.
That was my next question. How many of you feel compelled by your faith and spirituality to give back to the community? Messenger Muhammad, peace be upon him, it said that best of you are those who bring the most benefit to society.
Yeah, I love that saying, but I do feel that, I don't feel compelled. I feel it's an obligation for me. It comes from a place of passion for what I do, and when it makes a difference in a person's life, I think it's extremely rewarding and humbling.
Yeah, kind of like what Yasmin was saying. It's not that I feel compelled, it's that it's what I feel like is right. And so whenever I have anything that I can give, I feel like it's my duty as a human being to give.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of been taught to me growing up. I've always seen my parents give to people, let people stay in our house if they didn't have anywhere to go. And I think that has transferred into, my adult life. I studied social justice and international relations. Now I work for a labor union. I help people build power in their workplace. I did the Fight for 15 here in Seattle. So there's a lot of ways that I think it has manifested in my life.
Well, I've always had a strong desire to help and to give back, even though I considered low income and considered not, having these things that I could use or want, but I still found a way to volunteer. I found a way to do the case management and the counseling and the social work, fixing food at food pantries, working with the homeless. For some reason, my parents did that too when I was younger, so I think it had a great influence on me. And I continue to do it. I always find a way.
Sister Jameela, remember a person came to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and he asked, the poor person asked, I'm so poor, I can't give anything. I said, yes, every human being is capable of giving real, meaningful, and tangible things. And says, can you give a sincere smile from your heart to somebody else? Can you extend that? So we all have, great talents we may or may not be aware of to share and give.
Alhamdulillah, I was glad I was able to share and give. Alhamdulillah, and that's one of my favorites also.
I just wanted to add, so I was really driven to these projects, and I really feel that Islam really gave me the opportunity to be more giving. And I was raised in a family too. My mother was very giving, and it was just part of my religion as a Christian, as a Methodist, raised as a Methodist. But I really, in Islam, it's a mandate, but it's also, it's something that I really feel it comes from my heart, and I feel it's come through my religion. I just want to say, and we also, there's a saying with Prophet Muhammad, if you give to somebody, something better is going to come back to you, and I truly believe that. And in our community, sometimes we, maybe if it's our last dollar, you give it, but we're encouraged to do that because something positive will come back. I truly believe it.
Mm-hmm. And I certainly have seen that in my own life. And anytime you give in charity, it never is given away. You don't lose by giving in charity or giving contributions. So some of you talked a little bit about your contributions to your communities, but Yasmin and Alaa, we didn't quite hear from you about that. So Yasmin, for instance, I know that you were involved in helping create one of the largest Islamic centers on the West Coast, the Muslim Association of Puget Sound. Can you talk about sort of your role in helping create that and some of the work that MAPS does?
Yeah, so we incorporated in 2006, and that's the year that we moved from California to Seattle. And so my husband's vision was a very inclusive community from different walks of life as well as different ethnic backgrounds. And alhamdulillah, I think to this day, we are very open and very inclusive community. So I kind of took a role in the education committee, and I have been part of the education committee from the get-go. We have done, I was instrumental in starting a part-time school that serves over 1,000 families right now. And since, I've been from 2006, I was being involved in that, I kind of took a break and I said, okay, now that I've done a lot for the Muslim community, I wanted to get out of the community and, help in to the broader community, and that's why I started Skillspire. So in terms of where MAPS is right now, I think the growth has been tremendous. I mean, I walk in there right now on a Friday prayer, and there's just so many new faces. It's amazing. We're already growing out of that huge space that we have right now, and I think with Aneelah joining, we've been in the limelight quite a bit, and it's been wonderful. And we're trying to bridge a lot of the misconceptions that have been in the media, and we hope to continue doing that and building bridges.
And MAPS certainly does contribute to the community, has a medical clinic for the community, a legal clinic, a dental clinic, feeds the homeless, does meals during Thanksgiving, Christmas, and so much more. So there's a lot happening there in terms of contribution back to the community at large. Alaa, you're the potentially, I think you are the youngest on the panel,
Yes.
and you seem pretty ambitious, which is great. What are some ways that you contribute back to or give back to the community at large?
So since I've spent most of my life as a student, the biggest thing that I can give is my time, which is huge, especially when my schedule looks like the way that it does. So I try to volunteer in any way that I can. I work with a child who has autism, who's in the Muslim community, working on trying to improve his educational levels during the summer so that he's better prepared when school starts. I volunteer with the Islamic Center of Tacoma through different interfaith events. I spoke at the Iftar event that was hosted at a church. I recently went to UWT to present to a social work program class that was on, I think it was social work and spirituality. When I first started working with the campaign that I'm working on, I started off as a volunteer. So everything is just time. And however I can contribute in any way, whether I feel super up to it or not, I feel like if I have the time then, and the need is there, then I'm one of the first people to try and sign up.
That's wonderful. Hopefully you will continue doing that as well, because we need your time and your energy. Amirah, so you've worked with labor unions and employees and making sure that workers are paid their just wages. Can you speak a little bit more about that and maybe even mention something that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said about paying workers?
Sure. So I got into the labor movement. The first thing I did was the Fight for 15. And so with the Fight for 15, it was, what I loved about it, that it wasn't just about like raising wages in this one particular workplace, which is important and is, part of the work, but it was about raising wages for the entire city of Seattle, right? Especially the minimum wage. And so doing that work, there was I learned a lot about, wage theft that was happening, people that were asked to work off the clock, or people that, were working a lot of overtime but not getting paid overtime, and things like that. And so something that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said was, he taught us that we should be paying the laborer as soon as they're done working, before the sweat even dries on their skin, right? And so, the values of Islam really kind of play a role in all those kinds of social justice and labor justice issues that I'm involved in.
So Jaminah, I know you have had decades of volunteer work that you have done, and you already mentioned some of the ways that you have contributed and continue to contribute. Do you want to mention anything that you're particularly proud of?
There is so much. I just think a lot. Thank God for it. We have past couple of weekends been doing the Muslim Eat that I saw you at. Yeah, which is a very, very good project, because what it has is Muslim, and there's two sisters that helped started this. But what they do is we've done 2 or 3 in the churches, and it's a church dinner. I have the dinner there. And the thing about it is we intermix. There are different faiths and different religions. So we all mix together and we talk about Islam, we talk about Christianity. And it's a very, very, very good program. There's another program that we're doing at the Islamic Center with Brother Benjamin. And again, it's an interfaith thing. And we're gathering people from the community, as well as gathering people, Muslims from the community, non-Muslims from the community, all, and doing the same thing. It's about dawah, but it's also about sharing.
Well, it's about building bridges.
And building bridges.
Right?
Exactly.
That's beautiful.
Exactly.
We need that right now, more than ever.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Yes. So Janice, talk to us a little bit about, I mean, you work on ending homelessness in King County and nationally, and you do some other national work as well. Can you talk very briefly about some of the work on ending homelessness that you've been involved in?
So I started the Emergency Muslim Resource Guides, which you can find by just looking up Muslim Resource Guides, they'll show up, I believe 13 years ago, and I had experienced homelessness, and I really saw, when I became a Muslim, on top of that, I really noticed that our Muslim community needed to have some cohesiveness. There was a lot of room for improvement as far as social services that need to be served in our community. So I helped to start Al-Sadiq, a few other things, but the Emergency Muslim Resource Guides are multiple resources, as well as our mosques. They're all hyperlinked directly to the resources, so it's excellent. It's an excellent format online to be able to go directly back to find. If you just look up, you could look up maps, you could look up, Ethiopian Service Center, whatever. But so this has carried me through into national recognition, actually. And I was involved with Indian homelessness with King County and beyond for 10 years, and then I moved into the healthcare for the homeless now, and which is really exciting because we have so many more homeless in King County, and being able to provide services to them is exciting. I'm on the newly developed advisory governance for Seattle and King County, and we have 200 sites where people have served. The same dental van and medical van cares for the individuals on the streets, and they are the most vulnerable. We do have families and cars, and they touched 20,000 lives last year. So I'm really excited to be a part of that. There's always room for improvement, and as long as our economy tends to have such a huge gap between those that have and those that don't, we'll have continuing rates of homelessness. So we can all do our part to help, as you mentioned your parents have, and I just try to be a bridge, and I'm always looking for somebody that would like to join with me and carry the projects forward.
Well, it is, homelessness certainly is a crisis right now in the King County area, so the work that you're doing is more important than ever right now. So thank you for that.
How many of you are concerned about the direction our country is going?
Should we just show of hands?
So Amirah?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, things have been going in a bad direction for a little while now, but I think that especially with some of the policy that's coming out with children being caged up and separated from their parents, with people being banned from coming to this country, mostly Muslims and even Venezuelans, and I'm a Venezuelan. It's kind of scary, and I even thought about, like, okay, what if it gets even worse, what's my next plan? Am I going to move to Canada? Am I going to go to Egypt, Venezuela? But I'm concerned, but also, I feel like that's why, hearing from the women up here, that's why we do this work that we do, right? Is to try to make it a better place and make our country better.
Absolutely. And how many of you are specifically concerned about Islamophobia right now, which is as we know, at the highest levels in our nation's history? Can we see a showing of hands?
So this is interesting that all Muslim females, American Muslim females, are concerned about the direction the country is heading, and also they're concerned about Islamophobia. So perhaps would you like to share something?
Yeah, I mean, definitely concerned, as to where we're heading towards, but I think it's a good thing. It's like as if it's waking us up, Muslims. I think we've been too passive for too long, and I think we needed a rude awakening. And hopefully this will help us, project and educate people out there who don't have much knowledge about Islam, and all they hear is negative stuff. And so I would consider that, if they want to know about Islam, if someone wants to talk to me, it's like, take me out for, well, I don't drink coffee, so take me out for a glass of juice or something. Sure, I would love to come and talk to you. I'm very human like you.
I have suffered and directly faced anti-Muslim attacks and assaults. How many of you have faced? Wow.
Anybody specifically want to share what they have?
I'd like to just share that I'm a bus commuter because I am low vision and I don't drive, and I experience microaggressions every single day in reality, but more recently it has exacerbated to the point recently I was going to the airport, and I know at one stop they pick up, to be honest, homeless women, and it's very early in the morning, and a couple of them felt compelled to challenge me regarding my faith, and I just thought, this is so sad, because these individuals, they're having it so hard themselves, and somehow they feel that I'm in a country that I shouldn't be in, and that was exactly what they expressed to me. I didn't have a right to talk because I needed to go back home, and I'm a 12th generation American. I tried to share that with them, but they didn't want, and everything quieted down, but it's just shocking. I'll get yelled at shopping, somebody driving by in a car and yelling at me, and I was assaulted and experienced a concussion some years ago. So,
and you have white person privilege.
So,
yeah, and
yeah,
still,
but it's
that degree.
I've experienced. You're right, but also, as Jamila mentioned, if you're lower income, you do. We are considered. We are another part of your class, or whatever you want to say, that is subject to more. And I do get challenged. Oh, you can't be a Muslim because you're white. I've actually had people tell me that, and I explain to them, you can be a Buddhist if you're white. You can be a Hindu. You can be anything. But I was very much challenged on it. And then I more often just get asked, why you are white? Why are you? Which. I don't really like to go there on that one. I just kind of look at them. I think that the answer's there. So.
Jamila, do you want to talk about anything?
I was thinking about the fact that being Muslim, being African American, being female, I have had so many challenges, so many different things to come up. I was even told that because I was in an administrative position that I could not wear my hijab, and I could not talk about Islam and different things of that nature. I mean, I've really, really, really been challenged, particularly like even at the college that I went to. I was first Muslim, and it was a Catholic college. I was the first African American to go there. Same thing when I went on the force. And I definitely got challenged over and over again. When it came to Islam, the first thing they said, you're black. How is it you're a Muslim? I'm like, okay. That was the other side. I didn't have the
So Sister Jamila, I mean, the fact is, the very first slave ship which arrived on the shores of American colonies had black Muslims on it as slaves. It's a fact.
That is a fact.
And even before Columbus stepped on our country's shores, we had Muslim explorers to this region as well. And even today, the black Muslim community makes up a large portion of our American Muslim community at large. So
true. Yes.
And we have heroes and sports icons and others who have been black,
do.
you know, the greatest of all
We
time,
do.
Muhammad Ali, for instance.
Exactly. It's just that a lot of people do not know about it. We've been doing Black History Month, Juneteenth, programs like that in the masjids and in the churches and in the community centers. And you'd be shocked and surprised how many really did not know about it. No, they did not have that education. They did not have that information. It was not privy to them. So some of them developed the Islamic phobia from not having all of that information.
Amirah, Alaa, or Yasmin, would you share?
I mean, for me it's interesting because I'm not visibly Muslim, as people would say, right? I don't wear the hijab, but I have had, you know, a lot of experience. I grew up in Eastern Washington, so that was a thing. And I was one of the only Muslims in town, right? Or at my school, definitely. So, you know, you get called names, people make assumptions and ask weird questions. I mean, is Osama bin Laden your uncle? Like, or just some weird stuff. I think the most overt example was actually here in Olympia when I was wearing a kufiya, which is a certain scarf that I wore it as a symbol of Palestinian resistance. And someone walked up to me and pulled my scarf and was like, why are you wearing that hedgie thing? And I didn't understand what he meant at first. And so I was just like, oh no, it's a kufiya, it's a symbol of Palestinian resistance, and I'm explaining it to him. And he's like, I know what that is. I'm in the military. Do you know how many Muslims I've killed? Do you know how many Arabs I've killed? And it was just kind of like a shock, like, what? What is he talking about? And my friend came up and, you know, was like, don't talk to her like that. What are you doing? He yells at her, you're a traitor to your country, and then spits in our faces. And it was just like, what is going on? It was the first like real, like kind of violent Islamophobia experience. He starts taking off his jacket like he was gonna try to fight us. And it was finally at that point, like some other people that were standing by stepped in and broke it up. But it was really, I was really shooken up, you know, and I remember crying afterwards. I was like, okay, we're going home. Like, what just happened, you know? And I feel like it's just getting worse now, to the point where, like, after the travel ban or after Trump was elected, I felt like I didn't want to leave my house, you know, like, what's going to happen now that people feel emboldened.
And we need to talk about which travel ban. The travel ban, Muslim travel ban 1.0,
Right.
2.0, the 3.0, or whatever the
Right.
future holds.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Sister Alaa, like to share?
Yeah. So for me, when the election happened and everything kind of came up to the light, it's kind of like what Yasmin was saying. If there's one positive that came out of it, it's that finally everything that's been swept under the rug is slowly coming up to the surface, because this stuff has been happening for centuries. And everything with racism and xenophobia and sexism and just all the isms that have been kind of just hidden away through this kind of like cookie cutter image of what this country is finally being brought up. And when the election first happened and with all of the different versions of the travel ban, I kept feeling a sense of hope being just diminished. But what keeps me going is the presence of hope. Seeing children being more active is something that's really amazing. Because I know when I was a kid, I didn't know any of this even though things like this were happening, like I didn't know about it. But seeing my younger sister being super active and like watching Trevor Noah and just like knowing all of these things that I didn't know until I got to college. And so there is a bunch of negative things that are happening, but they're coming to the surface so that we can hopefully mobilize and work to effectively dismantle it.
I tell people that all the time, that as bad as things are right now, it is still an amazing time to be alive, because we actually have the opportunity to make a real difference and shape the future direction of our country. And let me just ask, sort of, what gives all of you hope?
Faith in Allah.
Yes.
So belief in God, okay.
in God.
Another
My
one?
faith gives me the hope.
Your
You know,
faith
things
gives you-
have been, you know, when you study the history, you know, we realize that it's not new. You know, a lot of countries and tribes and, you know, people have gone through different things. And I think we'll get through this, inshallah.
What are your hopes for the future?
Unity and peace. Faith, unity, and peace. For me, those are my hope for the future.
So you have more just system, and you know, personally, to just live a happy life with a family, and you know, and not have to worry about you know, what law is going to come down or who's going to be walking by me on the street and saying something. You know, to just feel safe and peaceful and happy.
So we've talked about some very heavy topics. How about we change it up and talk about something light? Name one of your sheroes or heroes. And it can be a cartoon character as well if you prefer. So maybe we start with Janice.
I just recently mentioned somebody. Her name is Dr. Lisa Simpson, and she's the head of Academy Health, and she's a pediatrician, and she's just dynamic, and she leads one of the largest research and policy, health research and policy organizations in the nation. And she's just dynamite and knows so much health data, and I just have so much respect for her, and she's very inclusive and respectful for everyone she meets. I'd love to be more like her.
Jamila?
I have so many heroes like Aisha Anderson, like Farida. So I'm just very pleased to have to be around Ida. All these different women that are already empowered, that are helping with them.
These are
Those are-
local. These are local women.
These are local women, and they're my heroes. The local women are my heroes. Local men are my heroes too.
Amirah?
I don't know, maybe it's kind of cliche to say, but like my dad, and a hero, I guess. He's not a shero. I think that he was an imam when I was growing up, and I think that he really kind of embodied like what we used to always joke and be like, Dad's like Jesus Christ incarnated or something, reincarnated, because he's just so gentle and kind and non-judgmental and just a beautiful person.
What about you, Alaa?
This is such a hard. It's
It's
nothing
a
that I've
hard one.
never. Yeah, it is a hard one. I've never
We
really
can go to the next one. It's
given
okay.
it much thought
Yeah.
before.
Are
Yeah,
you
go.
concerned? Are you concerned about your children?
Yeah, I am. Definitely concerned, but I think we are inculcating the values, the foundation, and the Islamic values in them to stay strong throughout. And they, you know, we do talk about politics a lot, you know, about the current situation. We definitely encourage them to be more active in the community. But definitely there is still hope.
I will say that my parents, my family, they're certainly concerned for my safety, and they think about that a lot, especially because I'm out visibly Muslim and out in the public. But I also want to move on to ask sort of, what is one thing that you wish our fellow Americans knew about Muslim women? Let's maybe ask you, Janice.
That we're strong, and that I think a bigger aspect about Muslim women is that we can come together as a community and stand up with one another and for one another. And in all honesty, I'd never experienced that community before I became a Muslim.
Jamila?
Pretty much the same. I find that, oh wow, it's just that unity, you know, again, that I talked about earlier. For me, yeah, that's the way I see it.
I guess that we're strong, powerful women that do all kinds of the same things that other Americans do, play sports, play video games. You know, we're just normal humans.
Yeah. Kind of to go off that we're just like the neighbor down the street,
Like everybody else.
but that we're also pretty resilient in having to face all of these different types of aggressions. but in the end of the day, I like to sit down and watch Netflix just like the next person does. So.
Yeah, I think, definitely very strong, powerful, empowered women, and very opinionated as well.
What gives you strength and inspiration in life?
My faith, I would have to say that.
Alaa?
I would have to say the people around me.
Amirah?
Yeah, thick skin, and people that love me and that I love.
I would say the same thing, family, but also the fact that I'm looking forward to going to paradise, mashallah, and that takes a lot of work. A lot of work.
I would say my faith and the fact that I always know that there's another project out there waiting for me to start to make a positive difference.
Makes sense. What is advice that you would give to people who want to meet their American Muslim neighbors, especially women? Where can they meet you?
I know something I always tell people is hand to hand, heart to heart. How to start when you first meet them, do this. That's what I tell them.
I think those interfaith groups that we're working with is a very, very good way. There was something that Chair did last year for Ramadan. They had this card and they had like a little message as well as like candy or something in a bag that they said, give to your neighbor. So projects like that are very useful.
I mean, I guess I can only speak from personal experience. A rally or a march, definitely you can meet some there. The grocery store. No. I always feel like when I see a sister in hijab, I'm like, oh, another Muslim. Yeah.
While shopping for toilet paper at Costco,
Exactly, right? It's like, hey.
Yeah, rallies, marches, local coffee shop. That's where you can find me.
Yeah, and in all the places we go to, just the grocery store, coffee shop, anywhere.
Last parting remarks. What is one thing you wish our fellow Americans knew about American Muslim women?
That we are very empowered. We have our very strong opinions. And if you were to ask my husband, he would say that, I'm the boss of the house.
I would say that we're really resilient.
I think also that we're really intelligent and highly educated.
And I would say to them, we are human.
I would say that we care and that we are a part of this fabric of the United States.
Well, thank you so much. I think we are out of time, but this has been just fun and engaging for me personally, and I've enjoyed getting to know all of you a little bit better, and hopefully the audience has as well. And again, thank you to Veterans for Peace, thank you to TCTV, thank you to Brother Zahid, and thank you to all the people who are watching us here. And
thank you to our wonderful audience. This is a project of Veterans Challenge Islamophobia. There's the website for Veterans Challenge Islamophobia, and you can always go to Veterans for Peace international and national websites. I'm your host, Zahid Chaudhry. May you have a wonderful evening. Take good care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.